You are listening to a Called Collective podcast where we seek to equip the next generation of ministry leaders. The Called Collective produces multiple podcasts, which you can find in the description below. To learn more about the Called Collective, visit our website at thecalledcollective.org or check us out on Instagram at The Called Collective.
What's up, guys? This is Coffee and Calling, where we just chat over coffee. I'm one of your co-hosts, Isaac.
I am Noah Yearout, and thank you so much. Sit back, enjoy, and come along for the ride. What's up, guys? We are back, another episode, and Isaac, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm a little hungry though.
Yeah, I mean,
Hungry for the word. Praise
it's
God.
that lunchtime, baby. Isaac, who do we got today?
Dude, we got a good friend, a good leader, good
Oh, yeah.
mentor. Crazy dude. Really fast dude, too.
Yeah.
McGerran Clouser.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dude, it's good to have you back.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yes,
I don't know
sir.
if I'm that fast anymore, but back in the good old days.
No, but dude, for some of the people that maybe don't know you, give a little bit of a rundown of who you are and what
Yeah.
you're up to now.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, like you said, my name is McGerran Clouser. I graduated from Indiana Wesleyan in 2020. Shout out COVID year.
Hey.
Went through all that. Had to switch to online classes
Dang,
halfway
I
through my
for-
senior year.
I forgot that's when you were.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
And so it actually gave me one of the best months on campus ever as we stayed and got ready to go home. But yeah, so I actually finished with a general studies degree with a concentration in ministry after I switched my senior year for a lot of reasons. But it was really good. Super glad to spend 3 years in the ministry program. And so, yeah, I am from Indiana, born and raised. And so after graduation, though, I felt God call me to Circuit Riders, an organization that I'm part of now. And so I moved out to California, and I've been there for the past 3 years since graduating, and get to come back to IWU often and just see all that God's doing here. And it's really cool to see the stuff that He was doing in my life is continuing on through so many different people. And so,
That's dope. That's dope. Well, we're stoked to have you on.
Yeah.
And just to
Wonderful.
talk about what God has done and what He is doing. And with that, I mean, the floor is yours. Just talk about, when God first called you to ministry, or even here at IWU, and all that, and how it's progressed to where you're at now with Circuit Riders.
yeah. Yeah, honestly, I mean, even just like the wording of like the call to ministry takes me all the way back to like my very first class on campus. So I actually transferred in halfway through my freshman year. So I mean, that's kind of where the call starts. Is I grew up in the church. I grew up being a leader and knowing that I wanted to serve God in whatever that I did, but I didn't really know what that looked like, what that meant. I just knew I wanted to probably make a lot of money and have a lot of fun and
Ministry.
be in sports. Like I ran track here. I played basketball at the school I was at before, and so sports was everything to me. And so I just needed to glorify God in that as the best that I could at the time. But when if I trace back all the way back, like that class, the project that we do, I can think back to moments from like 5th grade and like 7th grade, and then like sophomore year of high school, like CDYC.
Yes,
Good old days, me and Isaac at church camp back in the
Dude,
day together.
CYC was amazing.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I can even think back to a moment where one of the preachers, I don't know if you were there yet or not, but he said, like, would you raise your hands if you know you want to be a part of the church and serve in the church, but you aren't, like, you don't want to be like a pastor? And I was like, oh, I think that's what I want. So I knew I wanted to be in the church, involved as much as I could. But I didn't really think about being a pastor or doing ministry full time. I didn't know a lot about that until I got to Trine my freshman year and just had to dive into the word myself. And so through that, the Lord just really opened my eyes. And I was driving home one night and I just felt Him just kind of speak to me and tell me that like that I've been trying to use His gifts and His talents that He's given me for my kingdom, and He gave them to me to build His kingdom, and that's what He wants me to do, and He wants to partner with me in that. And so I was like, wow, that's crazy. I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know how to go into ministry. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to get down this road, but I just knew that's what God had given me them for, and I knew I wanted to do that. And so I started searching all the local Christian colleges I could find and applying to them, and I was stuck out. I came on a visit, and I just felt the Lord was so here, and it was such a special place, and it's going to transfer at the end of the year. And the advisor was like, no, you can come next semester. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's dive all in.
Dang.
All by the grace of God. I have no idea why I said yes to that decision. I just knew that like I needed to, essentially, all I needed to do the next step was study ministry. And so I felt God my freshman year try and call me to ministry, I would say, for not just as something to be a part of my life, but what my life would be about. And so
Dang.
that's like my call to ministry. That's like what that project was all about. But
Mm.
since then, I would say it's just formed such a deeper meaning to me to be called to ministry full time. Obviously, I would say that every Christian is called to ministry, right? But what does it mean for me to do it for my whole life is when I got here, I really thought the only option for being called to ministry essentially was being a youth pastor and then one day being a senior pastor, like
Yeah.
the classic steps, which are amazing and great. And but that's all that I knew. That's all I had seen growing up. That's all I really felt from the different things that I was surrounded with. And so that's what I knew I needed to do ministry. That's all the call was okay, build my kingdom. And I was like, okay, I have to be a youth pastor. And so that was great. That was the plan. But through classes here, professors here, friendships here, and relationships here, I just I kept down that path and I was excited for it. And then my junior year, I got in a group of guys that were so on fire for the Lord, and I kind of was just wrecked all over again with a
Mm.
whole nother call that like, no, 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 your call for ministry isn't just a vocational call. It is a vocational call specific to
Mm.
me, but it's also like this is everything. Like I
Wow.
want my whole life to be about serving the Lord. And so whatever I can do, I want it to be like that. And I want to do something more than like I just had this desire to do something different than what I had seen growing up and stuff like that. Like I still think eventually one day I do want to pastor a church and stuff like that. And so obviously there's nothing more than that, obviously. But I just felt this calling for God calling me to a deeper point of surrender because
Mm.
I think I had found some more comfortability in what being a youth pastor would look
Mm.
like. I
Yeah.
knew where I would be. I knew what like a salary I would get and stuff like that. And I knew the route and the road, but I felt God was calling me down more of like an unknown path, which was a little scary, but really fun diving down. And so from junior year on, that's actually where I was introduced to what I'm doing now, which is carry the love to earth and with circuit riders. And so when they came to campus my junior year, I was like, this is it. Like this is what it is. God, I felt like called me to that. And so I ended up doing a 2 year training program with them in that summer. I really wanted to drop out after that,
Wow.
because you don't need a degree to do circuit riders, and people do
Oh
it straight
yeah.
out of high school. And so I was like, dang, this is it, God. Like, I really want to do this. But I felt like he was like, no, 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 no. Like, still trust in my timing. You're still meant to be at IWU. Like, you're still meant to be
Mm.
on the track team. Like,
Wow.
you've got a lot going on here that I've given for you to continue to steward. And so if I would have left, I would have seen that as bad stewardship of what God had given me to steward. And so I came back. It was tough coming back.
That would be.
Mm.
Yeah, especially circuit riders out in Huntington Beach, California, nice weather. I'm coming back to Indiana a little fall, but I love Indiana and the people here, the school here makes this so worth every single thing you could do here. And so, but yeah, I finished out, got my degree, switched it because I could save some money by switching my degree. Super nice, save some time by only taking 2 classes my senior
Oh
year.
my days.
Yeah, right. And still run. And so blessed by the track team, so blessed by all the professors, Charlie, Dr. Morgan, Shammy, all my friends, and now since then I've kind of just been running and haven't looked back. And I joined Circuit Riders right after graduation. I did summer ministry teams my last summer
Mm.
though, and then got me prepared for this and moved out, did my training year there, and I've been on staff for about 3 years now.
Mm.
And yeah, it's just amazing that now I didn't even know this was an option. Like I didn't.
Yeah.
I thought the only way you could serve God full time was to be a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And so my eyes have been so open to what it looks like to be called to ministry in so many deeper ways. And I mean, now it filters into. I was just talking to AJ about this the other day. It filters into the workplace. It filters into your family. It filters into your job and
Yeah.
your hobbies even and what you do in your relationships. And so to be called to ministry, at first I thought it was like, okay, what's my job going to be? But now I realize like, okay, it's like, what's my life going to be? And so
Mm.
since then, it's been really, really cool and a lot of fun and
Wow.
super, super unknown a lot of times, but that's kind of a fun place to be.
That's sweet. That's sweet. Could you just maybe for the people listening, because you said you didn't know this was an option.
Hmm.
Maybe take this time to like kind of tell more about it in a sense,
Yeah.
like I mean, quickly, so we can like stay
Yeah.
on track with your story. But I don't want to miss an opportunity to let people know if you don't feel like the Lord's really he's calling you to ministry, but it doesn't look like the average Joe or like what you have seen
Yeah.
growing up.
Totally.
Maybe give a little synopsis of what Circuit Riders is.
Yeah, because I'm like totally intrigued by circuit riders
Uh-huh.
just because it's one of those things that seems like this far off idea that no one actually knows what circuit riders is.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, that's kinda relatable, even being in the organization, I feel that. Oh, man, but yeah, super quick rundown. So, YWAM is Youth with a Mission, if you've heard of that. That's a little more familiar to people in Cirque Riders. So, Cirque Riders is a pretty brand new ministry in comparison to a lot. It's only about 11 years old, started in 2012, I believe, and so it's under the umbrella of YWAM, so it operates the same way. So, it's a discipleship training school is one piece of it, and so to but then you can join staff afterwards, and so it's this missions organization full of young people out in Huntington Beach, California, where you can come for an 8-month discipleship training school where you spend 3 months living in California in community housing. It's amazing. You get make your best friends ever. You spend 3 to 5 hours a day just hearing teachings and sermons and practicing preaching or media or music, whatever your gifts and talents are, and growing in that skill set. And then after that phase, that semester is done, you actually go on an outreach tour,
Mm.
which we have multiple ones. We have Cirque Rider Youth Tour to high schools. We have Brave Love Women, which is our women's tour. And then we have Black Voices Tour, which is brand new. And so that's awesome. That goes like to HBCUs. And then we have Carry the Love Tour, which is the longest standing one, which goes to over 500 campuses across America and Europe. And you
Wow.
go and you put on worship nights, you host events, you preach the gospel, you train students to preach the gospel, you go out and preach the gospel with them, and you just get to see amazing things for about 8 weeks. And then after that, you can come on staff and be a part of developing all of that stuff. So, like my role is a tour leader. There's other things you can do. You can lead a house and disciple young men or young women all year round, basically as they come and move in into your house that you help lead, and then you can also tour lead, which is where you plan the outreaches that we do, and so that's part of it. There's also things we do all summer where we organize and put on leadership training schools for about 2 weeks, multiple times a summer, from Huntington Beach to Dallas, Texas last year, and we even do schools in Egypt, which is cool, and in also Kenya, and then we're doing a lot in Burundi, Africa as well, and so God is expanding a lot, and so there's a lot of different roles that are growing constantly and different leadership things and tasks that are being put on and stuff like that to grow. But yeah, it's basically just like you're a missionary to America essentially, to like the
Yeah.
hardest parts of America. You get to sign up and to be a missionary, to get trained in it, and then to lead in that. And it's amazing. It's such an amazing
Wow.
opportunity. But
That's dope. Yeah, guys, check it out. Especially because
100%.
it's something that I've always been interested and intrigued in because I mean I've had talks with Noah a lot. Me and Noah differ a lot on how we feel like the Lord has gifted us, which is the beautiful thing, right? Where he's more the pastoral heart that wants to stay in a place for like a
Hmm.
good 40 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Not saying that's going to happen, but that's more his
Yeah.
heart.
Yeah.
Mine is more I'm not gonna stay in one place for a long time.
Hmm.
The longest I'll be somewhere is like 3 years. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's where my heart is, and just like keep going around.
Totally.
But dude, going back to like your story, when you, because I think people have this misconception of when God calls you to ministry, that the next like, I think people understand that it will still be hard,
Hmm.
but I think they think that the first like weeks, month, the first year of that is just living in rainbow land or something. Like you're just like on the mountaintop the entire time, always hearing the Lord's voice and all this stuff. How was it coming to IWU after like receiving that call and
Yeah.
like being obedient to that and then coming here? What was that like? Was it on the
Yeah.
mountaintop or were you like in the middle, in the valley, all those
Yeah.
things?
Yeah, honestly, it was all across the board, just depending on the moment, I would
Mm.
say. So I actually transferred in halfway through my freshman year, right? And so that actually probably produced one of the harder challenges for me. I'm 18, first year in college. I'm transferring to this new school where I don't know anyone. I think I ended up knowing two people from like a local high school that I knew growing up that were here, Grant and Colin Barker, if you remember him. And
Yeah,
so
dude, Colin Barker was a good friend when I first got here
right.
because he had the room I had freshman year.
And so I didn't even know that they were here. I literally didn't know a single person that went there until I was moving in the day, and I saw Colin. I was like, "Oh, this is awesome! I have one friend at least
Yeah.
who's kind of a friend." We went to rival high schools and played against each other in sports, so as much of a friend you can be. And so what that produced, honestly, for me personally, which honestly, I wasn't a super social person at that time in my life. Wasn't extroverted, didn't know how to engage in that. I grew up in like the same communities all year round. So produced in me a lot of just like, man, I don't have a solid group of friends here because they've kind of already formed at that point.
Yeah,
And I
that's
was doing a practicum at my in my hometown about 40 minutes away because it's the only thing I could figure out in time. And so they allowed me to do that, which I know is usually not the rule. Um, and so
They're very gracious here.
yes, they are, and so that was amazing, and it helped so much, but at the same time, I was home almost every weekend, and I just as a normal college student, I took a lot of naps, and so I wasn't super social, and so for me, that just created that, and so I leaned into my friends back home, and what that did is it led to me to be so I loved classes. I loved learning things about the Bible and about God that I had never learned before, so that for me was like the mountaintop. I was like, I feel like I'm literally entering a new world where I get to learn. Like that is the sunshine and rainbow. It's like, wow, God is amazing. Look at all this cool stuff that I never knew growing up, really diving into the Old Testament, the New Testament and different things like that and theology. I'd never been introduced to theology before here. And now it's like my favorite thing ever.
Yeah.
And so that's like the mountaintop. But the honest hard part is that like I didn't find a group of friends here that I connected with. And that's like totally on me, I would say. It's not on like the friends here. And so that led to me going back home. My friends back home just were not in the same boat, not on the same path of life at the time. And I still love them. We're still super close, but just at the time that we were in different stages. And so I was kind of like one foot in one boat and one foot in the other. And it just made a lot of stretching, going through a lot of problems in life and stuff like that. And just a lot of struggles that were prolonged because I was feeding off of the mountaintop of growing in my knowledge of the Lord, but my relationship was still probably just as lacking before I had been called to ministry. And so it created this like dynamic of like, I think I'm doing really well, but in the end, like if I didn't even know it, but I wasn't. And so that came to
Mm.
my sophomore years when that came to like full fruition and like the boats just started pulling apart so much that I couldn't stay in both. And so that was probably like one of the harder seasons of my life was me trying to stay in both boats, the one I had come from and the one that God was calling me into, being like called to ministry. And it took until my after my sophomore year, that summer ministry teams, God was like, "This is what you're doing for like the rest of your life." Like this, like there was a
Mm.
moment I was praying over and watching like a group of young boys from high school pray over each other, and God, I could just so clearly hear him be like, "This is it. Like this is what you've been
Wow.
made for. Like this is what you're gonna see forever." Like, and I was like, "Wow, like I want nothing else. I just want
Mm.
this." And so I was like, "I want to get in the. I'm in your boat, Jesus." And so after that, so like the first year and a half of being called to ministry was probably one of the toughest times on me in my life.
Hmm.
Struggling through like knowing things, growing in knowledge, but at the same time, like my relationship with the Lord struggling, figuring out what it means to like I didn't know anything about like why I was supposed to live a holy life or what holiness was good for. Actually, I just knew it was the right answer and all that stuff that the Lord graciously taught me here and taught me through in so many ways. But yeah, so honestly, that first it had its moments where I was like, this is incredible. Um, and but at the same time, it had moments where I was like, even at times unaware of what I was doing. Of this, it just wasn't it yet. And so the
Mhm.
Lord, still while here, graciously enough, and protecting me and guiding me in His kindness, leading me to repentance, essentially, brought me into the fullness of what now I would say is the best life you could possibly have following Jesus, but it doesn't make it easy. It just
No.
makes it really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what I love, but that's what I would say on that.
That's fire. That's fire.
Yeah, something that kind of I don't know. You loved being in class and learning, which is so funny because when I met you, I mean you were an absolute social butterfly. Like McGerran walks through the
Yeah, I
halls,
was shocked. I
and
was
literally
shocked by that.
everybody in campus is like, "Oh, McGerran, McGerran, I follow you on TikTok,
Oh my-
McGerran."
that happened. That happened yesterday on campus.
No
There
way.
was like a freshman or sophomore, I'm sure, who was like, "Are you McGerran from TikTok?" And I
That's
was like,
Josh. That's Josh.
Oh
Yeah, it's
no.
gotta be.
That's
It's
gonna
gotta
be
be.
Josh.
Oh man.
But
Anyways,
you loved learning. You loved understanding theology and the Bible and things like that. But I also know that there's also a huge gap and divide between learning all of that
Mhm.
and practice, right?
Mm.
Ministry teams is kind of like this rude awakening of, oh my gosh, I know these things, but how do I communicate it,
Yeah.
right? So I'm actually really curious, how did you translate from what you learned at Indiana Wesleyan
Yeah.
and translate it into not only ministry teams, but also circuit riders? Because I
Mhm.
know it's a vast difference and there's different contextualizations and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's such a good question. Oh man, I love that. Because that's kind of what my passion has grown into now. Is
Wow.
like, and it's starting to be formed into that even more. Is like I love theology. I love like those conversations and even the debates and stuff. I'll stand on both sides and argue the other one, you know what I mean? And so,
Sounds like you, Isaac.
yeah, and so I
do the same thing.
I love playing that challenging role in conversations just to see how people think and stuff like that. So I'm so interested in those types of things. But for the beginning years of being called to ministry, and even now I'm sure still is like it was mainly in my head, and I felt good about learning things and knowing them. But I had no idea how they applied. Like I had no idea how whether you're a Calvinist or Arminius could ever affect your life, you know what I mean? And how that if you, either one, whichever choice you're going to stand on, if you are standing on the Word of God and you're doing it out of the right heart of loving God and loving His people, it's going to produce the same fruit
Hmm.
in your life. Like otherwise, and if it doesn't, then something's off. Like that's kind of what connected to me is like, man, all these theological issues of how are like people being saved, total depravity, the gifts, every debate you could have is like, man, and I got so into those debates and learning the insights behind those debates, but I think I failed to realize, and honestly, at the cross conference is when I feel like I started to articulate what I felt for the first time. We were there together,
Dude,
Isaac, and it was such a
what
good
a
time,
time.
such a good squad of guys there, and so many good conversations, and I just was like, man, like like both sides are using the Bible to prove their point. Both sides clearly love the Lord, and the I'm like I'm fine with either one as long as it's producing the same fruit in your life. Like as long as you're still loving the Lord and loving His people and preaching the gospel and praying for the sick and doing the work of the kingdom, like then if you're not, then there's something. And so like for me, I was like, man, if I'm not doing these things, then my theology isn't doing what it's supposed to do. Like it's
Mm.
not carrying into my heart, which will carry into my life. And so because if it's not producing like it can produce fruit in knowledge, but if it's not producing the fruit of the spirit in your life, then it's not doing what it's meant to. Like if I can learn about Jesus and it leaves me unchanged as a person or in my desires to know him, then I'm not in a way I'm learning more about like a historical character than I
Yeah.
am about like than I'm learning and growing of who Jesus is.
Exactly. That's like for that First Corinthians 13. Just love is like
Mhm.
I can prophesy. I could speak in tongues.
Yeah,
I could have knowledge of all things, but if I do not love, I'm nothing. I'm nothing.
exactly.
If it doesn't affect this at all, you're
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. And so I would say that that's kind of it for me is like letting things actually come into life. I've been talking about this with a lot of friends and the messages that I'm sharing on tour. The way I want to intro and the way I want to just do everything in life anytime we talk about the Lord or preach the gospel is that like it's not meant to be removed from life. I feel like the easy thing to do with theology is remove it from the context of life and just talk about it in the classroom. And we grow a lot in knowledge, but it can, for myself, it doesn't affect my personal life. And so I have to, I'm learning now through writing, through articulating it, through studying it, through looking at people's lives who I'm like, wow, they clearly have the fruit of the Spirit in their life. How do I pull these ethereal things about who God is or how God works into the context of life and let it produce the fruit of the Spirit in me? Because
Mhm.
if it's doing that, then I'm becoming more of the image of God every day. And I do believe that, like I said, I love theology. I love the questions. I love the debates. I love the word and but what it's all meant to do is meant to go through you and out into the world. Like it's
Mhm.
not meant to stay in your head. Like your knowledge of God. And so that's what I would say, but it's so hard, like, I still struggle with it so much being so invested in learning, and stuff like that, and so, like, while I was here, like, my as I became more outgoing and like a social butterfly, I don't think my theology ever impacted it, just became about the people and stuff, and so they stayed separate, but since coming to circuit riders and really interacting with a lot more lost people that don't know Jesus and getting to talk with them or even, like, really young Christians that are coming through our discipleship program and realizing like, okay, like I can tell them all the facts, but if it's not changing them, if it's not doing the work of if it's not
Mm.
actually discipling them and
Mm.
growing them closer to who Jesus is and Jesus in their life, then it's almost pointless. You know what I mean? And
Wow.
so that's what I've come to learn. I'm still learning it so much. Like I want to start my master's this fall, but I'm like, man, I need to be aware of this going into my master's
Mm.
because I can
Yep.
grow in knowledge and that would be great. And the thing is the tough thing is it can get me a lot in the world. You know what I mean? If I want that, if I want the right degree and the right job and the right people to like give me
Yeah.
some praise for knowing the right things and I can speak wherever, you know what I mean, type of stuff like that, which is what I used to think ministry was about, that I wanted to speak everywhere I could and do all that stuff. I'm realizing now that like, man, it's just all about people's lives because people desperately need to encounter Jesus and you can learn more and grow in that through growing in theology and growing in the word and growing in study. But it has to do that. And if it's not, then it's almost like, why have it? Why puff yourself up for no reason?
Yeah.
But
Dang, that's so good. We always wrestle here too. I mean, you probably knew about it while you were here. The pros talk about, how do you break that barrier of academics and
mm,
living a practical life for Christ? Because academics is good. Like growing in this, like I've learned some stuff that I'm like, dang, I love that I know that. Like
Yeah.
I remember taking the class Christology last semester with J Money, Dr. Morgan.
Oh, gotta love Jonathan Morgan.
And
come on.
I've never had a theological class impact my relationship with the Lord so much.
No kidding.
And
That's
it
so
like
good.
deepened my love for God and knowing His love for me.
Yeah.
So like seeing that, I'm like, that's a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
Or like I'm sitting there in class in post-exilic literature with Elaine Bernius, and she's wrecking my mind at
Yeah.
9:25 in the morning. And I go to lunch and want to just read all the scripture that she
Come
just
on.
read to us at the lunch table. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so my favorite thing is just seeing people like that are just like recklessly on fire for the Lord. Now, granted, there are some times like it can be harmful to like other people, but somebody who's just like, I've now received freedom. How can I not do anything about this and not go share it with people?
Yeah.
I remember a person I lived with in Costa Rica. He was like my housemate or whatever. And he was talking about all the things that he was doing, like he's done in his life. Crazy missionary, crazy
Okay.
Bible smuggler in North Korea, South Korea,
Dang.
China, all these places.
That's crazy.
And I was like, why did you do all that? Thinking here would be like, what? How did you know the Lord was calling you to that? He's like, what do you mean? I was like, how did you know the Lord wanted you to go do that?
Mhm.
He's like, read the word. It tells you to go and do it.
Wow.
So I went and did it. You know what I mean?
That's
Nothing other
crazy.
than that, where he's like, I've received the freedom. Now I need to go preach the freedom.
Mhm.
And I was like, so many times we take these so unnecessary steps to preach the word.
Mm.
And now it's become the gospel has become so much more complex in my mind than ever I think was supposed to be.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I definitely can relate to that because that's kind of like what I'm doing now. So we travel to college campuses and we preach with state schools, Christian schools, all in between, and we're preaching the gospel. Like, so I preach most nights, and the whole point of my message is just see people encounter Jesus. And so I have all this stuff that, like, I guess you could say, like, I have all this knowledge of Jesus that has formed how much I love him in my back pocket that I can pull out, not like anytime, but I can use in the sermon. And so, but at the same time, there's also like the truth of like the simplicity of the word.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what I've come to learn, and the best way to think of it is sticking just to the simplicity of who Jesus is, but at the same time, like he equips the saints for stuff, and so like he like us growing in the academic side when we're doing it in like a fruitful way. Essentially, in my mind, the best way I could describe it is it's like it's adding tools to our tool belt.
Yeah.
Because especially in the generation that we're approaching and the way things are going and the access to all this different information that people have, and like we're just talking on the way in here that podcasts are like growing, and the number 2 thing that people listen to
Yeah.
daily is this reality that people are going to have more and more questions than ever before because they're going to hear more and more stuff than ever before, and we have to have something to stand on. Like even growing, one of my favorite things to grow in is like learning about the Bible itself, like the word yet like in it, but also like how we got this book.
Yeah.
Because that's probably going to be in the future the number one question that people have for Christians. They're not just going to take like, well, it's just the word of God and just believe it. Like, so it's like, so learning about like the process of how the Bible was put together and how it was guided by the Spirit. And it's like, not my quote, but I think Tim Mackey said like the divine origins of the Bible don't negate the human origins of it, but the human origins don't negate the divine origins.
Yeah.
And so it's just like perfectly woven together, and you can trace the story of it. Like there's no fear in how the Bible was put together. It wasn't this golden tablet dropped from heaven just in an instant. The whole thing's right here. It's this beautiful piece of work and piece of art that God used humans to form. And so like growing in that is so helpful to speak to people who have questions about it and meeting them at their level rather than telling them to like ascend to ours of faith. Like, oh, just having a faith that it's God. No, like let's use this stuff that we know to pull it into the context of life and answer questions where people are at. And so that's one thing I've seen
Wow.
is you encounter so many like college campuses, especially state schools, you encounter so much.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so many different viewpoints
Yeah.
and things being preached. And that's why I'm like very passionate. Like, no. While at the same time, I've never been more convinced that we need the simplicity of the gospel. I've never been more convinced that we need not even just the leaders, but every Christian to be getting those tools in their tool belt and
Yeah.
building that and becoming. And so
It's that
Yeah.
tension of
Mhm.
right what we talk about. the academics and the practical aspect, like they have to work hand in hand.
Yeah.
You know? And I remember in one of our classes we were reading a book and it talks about like how do we minister to the Western culture?
Mm.
And Tim Keller has his first point is a public apologetic. He's
Mm.
like the information that people have seeking facts like from the modernity era or just the modern era
Mhm.
of just wanting to know the facts, science, all these things. You have to use reason to prove what you believe. And that brought up all these questions about God, about the Bible, and all this stuff. And now we're moving to postmodernity. And it's like,
Mhm.
we do have to have a public apologetic. Not that we have to have the answers for everything, because there
Yeah.
are some things we're not going to be able to. But when somebody asks us questions about the Bible and other things, we need to be people that are like literate in the
Yes,
Bible
literally.
and knowing what it says
Yeah.
and things like that. And so I love how you brought that up because
Yeah.
I think it's so important here, especially.
Yeah. Even so we work a lot with this we're main collaborators at Circ Riders with this thing called the Send. If you guys have heard of it. It's a gathering, it's changing. You can look it up, but it's all about sending like missionaries going and not just overseas, but like being a missionary to your neighborhood or to your campus or to a nation. And so it's this amazing thing that's been going on for a few years. It's like Francis Chan is like one of the main collaborators and he's just been pioneering it for the past couple of years and it's amazing. There's one in Grand Rapids, I believe, this year. So for Iowa people that are close,
Hey.
definitely head up. Grand Rapids is on fire. But Andy Bird's like the spearhead of it. He's been leading it for a while. He's the head of YWAM Kona, I believe. He's a legendary missionary. Like has done countless different things, and he's like the most humble man, and he's just incredible. He's one of my main people that I want my life to look like. And he shares the statistics with us all the time. He comes in and helps us and teaches us at Circ Riders. And Gen Z has about, I think, is a 4% biblical worldview. Like 4% of Gen Z has a biblical worldview, which means that they're probably like the only max 4% are biblically literate. Because I would say you can probably have a biblical worldview and not quite be biblically literate.
Yeah.
Biblically literate. But at the same time, when you ask Gen Z, they are the most missional minded generation ever. They like when you ask them what they want, like more Christians and more people than ever before said that they would say that they would consider being a missionary as like what they do with their life, which is incredible. It's like 60% or it's I don't know the numbers, but this is the most mission minded missional organization, justice minded, good like helping people, all these different things we can see in the world through Gen Z. They're so passionate about it, yet they're the most biblically illiterate generation. I mean, I'm Gen Z as well, so we are the most biblically illiterate generation. And so if we're gonna see God move through this, right? This mission-minded Gen Z to see the Great Commission fulfilled, we have to be biblically literate. Like you can't, and so that's like my passion is like we can't send out missionaries that don't
That don't know the word.
Yeah, and so it's the tension. It's everywhere. But I think what God is doing, and it's a whole nother podcast, I would say. But God is raising up like young men and young women, like guys like you. I want to be one like that are this new breed of leaders in the church, of teachers of the word, where he's equipping us with so much and it comes from a lot of different places of having more resources, more access to the greatest Bible teachers ever of all time. You know what I mean? And we can pull from anyone. Like I imagine like 40 years ago, you either had to go to seminary or you just went to your local church every Sunday and you just heard your pastor preaching. And that's all you were taught and that's all you knew, except for your own study of the word or whatever you wanted to get you on. But now there's this access to a whole new world where I can hear the best Arminius scholar, I can hear the best Calvinist scholar, I can hear the best charismatic scholar, the best Reformed scholar. I can listen to John MacArthur, I can listen to John Mark Comer, I can listen to Tim Mackey, I can listen to whoever and Francis Chan, and I can learn from the whole body. Like I have access to the whole body of Christ and teachers like never before. And it's forming for those who are willing to undergo the task of becoming these new leaders for the church that are going to be equipped on every side of the ball, like and ready to just go to war against all the different things that the enemy is going to try and battle against and be so equipped. And not that leaders haven't before, but I think it's just we're going to see a generation of leaders rise up that are so full of spirit and truth like never before.
Yeah.
Like the question of like, are you more of a spirit guy or more of a truth guy? That like we kind of can feel the tension and
Yeah.
I think it's gonna go away. I think it's gonna I think every leader in the church like that is gonna just wage war on the kingdom of darkness is gonna be so full of spirit and so full of truth that it's like just creates this new breed, this unstoppable thing. And maybe it's just I'm just young and I'm saying that, and it's just prideful to say that, but I really do think he's raising up just a generation of leaders in the church that don't even all have to be pastors, don't have to be all be anything like that, but are just like he's just equipping the saints for what is coming in a way I feel like that maybe we haven't seen before through, and that's the
Wow.
beauty of the internet. And so he's using it for his good, and so yeah, I think it's just really cool because if we're going to capitalize and we're going to see God move through the most missional minded organization ever, he needs to raise up people who are going to teach this generation, and this generation isn't super interested in learning from older generations or the experts. They want to hear their peers. They want to hear
Yeah.
people a little bit older tell them what they've found and show them how they found it, not just tell them the answers. And so those leaders are rising up in the church today. It's guys like you. It's guys all across. They're everywhere, and they're all throughout this university. They're all throughout Circuit Riders, and it's really cool to see. But because we can't send out, if we want to send out the most missionaries we've ever sent out, they have to be trained up, they have to be
Yeah.
equipped and stuff. And so it's just a perfect dynamic and an example of that whole the balance of things. Because if we just
Yeah.
send them out, we're like, oh, amazing, they want to be missionaries. Let's just get them. Let's just give them the 5 points of the gospel, get them on the road, and they know it, and that's great. Like it's missing a lot. That's like something I've been trying to like wrestle with is like we don't want to mass produce a message that wasn't meant to be mass produced. Like we don't want to just like give out like this broad like just here's the facts, and because the gospel is meant to penetrate every piece of your life, every part of your being, and transform you, and like that's what will affect the world and change the
Wow.
world. And so that only comes through when both of those things are together. Because yeah, it's just a work of the Holy Spirit and but partnering with him. Like
Yeah.
and so that's why he
Mm.
gave us all of our,
Dang.
like you said, all of our brains, all this stuff to become more of the image of him and show the world who God is through
Boom.
that stuff. And so
Boom.
yeah.
That's so good, bro. That's so
Yeah.
good. This has been a delight for me.
Yeah, the wisdom and encouragement and experience you have just oozing out of you doesn't even. I don't even need to ask like, oh, if you had like a piece of advice, like
That was the piece of advice right
all
there.
of it was. Yeah. So
Dang.
McGerran, thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
guys.
spending time with us. I know you've got a busy schedule, that you're tired, you're going from place to place, but it means a lot that you spend
Yeah.
time, and all the hiccups that have happened or will happen. It's all just happy little
Yeah.
accidents, as Bob
Mhm.
Ross would say, right?
Come on.
Disturbances that are
So good.
for the kingdom. So
Thank you guys.
for those that are listening, stay tuned. We have more. McGerran, I hope it all goes well with your writers, that you
Thank
continue
you.
to see God move in incredible
Come
ways.
on.
So
Thank you
yeah,
so
we'll
much.
see you guys
Awesome.
soon.
Adios.
We'd also like to take a second to thank the School of Theology and Ministry at Indiana Wesleyan University for using their facilities. We want to thank the Call Collective for producing all of our podcasts. The Call Collective seeks to equip the next generation of ministry leaders. To find out more information, visit at thecalledcollective.org or check us out on Instagram at The Called Collective. Thanks for listening again and taking time in your day to have the chance to be formed by the conversations we have over coffee. See you guys next week.